Good afternoon and welcome everybody to the digiNEB's first webinar starting at 3. My name is Silvana Muscella. I'm the CEO of Trust IT, and I'm here to moderate the discussion of a digital ecosystem that the new European Bauhaus is building for itself. This is a joint effort between the partners that you see in the slide in front of you, and the discussion will be expertly driven by the following speakers, so that you can also see in the slide that you have here that we'll be introducing individually. What I'd like to say now is I'd like to thank the representatives from the European Commission who are actively supporting NEB, and we have with us Magda Herbowska, the acting head of unit for NEB at JRC, and we have Eddy Hartog, the head of unit for technologies for smart communities at the European Commission at DG Connect. So we have a very fast-paced agenda. If you can see here, we're just up for an hour. And what I'd like to suggest is that all of those of you who are on as participants, I love it when we have lots of chats going on. So please feel free to write whatever you like in the chat. You also have the opportunity to pose your question in the Q&A box in Zoom. We'd like to ask you to keep your microphone on mute, and we'd ask you to just enjoy the next hour. So let's go forward with what we can show with this digital ecosystem. So in the next 24 months, what we want to try and do is propose, if you think you have digital solutions, we want you to propose them for us and add them to our digital toolkit, which you can see here. These are the opportunities that we're going to hear from in today's webinar. There will be an e-learning catalogue also, where we'll be able to expose all types of training materials. You can also join technical working groups and work on different vertical industries. Today, we're going to home in on the construction one, but we will have many more with future webinars and workshops. So do consider this as well. And then we'll also be hearing about how you can become an early adopter too. So what we want to propose, we want you to propose yourself as individuals who can be part of the greater NEB ecosystem. And through this, we're working specifically to looking at the digital solutions. Okay, so with that, I'd like to pass the floor directly to Magda, thank you very much, who will be focusing primarily on what the priorities are for NEB. So with that, thank you, and over to you, Magda.
Thank you so much, Silvana, and hello to everyone. I'm really glad to be here today and with all really high-level speakers and colleagues. I thought I would start with a general presentation of the new European Bauhaus to sort of let us into the topics for today's discussion. And of course, then Eddy will follow up from a more of the digital, let's say, point of view. And of course, I'm very happy about this initiative, digiNEB, because obviously the European Bauhaus in today's day and age needs digital solutions, and we're very happy to work with you all on those. So maybe just as a very short reminder, because I'm also only allotted 5 minutes, so I'll try to squeeze as much as I can in those 5 minutes of what the new European Bauhaus is and where it comes from. So, you know, in the European Commission, we say that the new European Bauhaus is the soul of the Green Deal. So, of course, we all agree that our future has to be sustainable, but there was something missing, we thought, of how these new green initiatives were being taken up by people, by companies, by organizations, and so what was missing, we thought, was a little bit the human touch. So the inclusive side of things, the beauty, how you actually feel in your environment, how it inspires you. So so we came up with these 3 values of the European Bauhaus, which you have on the screen: sustainable, beautiful, and together. And we can go to the next slide. My presentation is very long. We will not stop at every slide. And so, you know, it started, of course, with the speech of the President of the Commission in September 2020. And then we had a nice few months of a co-decision phase. This is also a very new way of working for the European Commission, inside the European Commission, and with different stakeholders, so very co-creative. So we not only listened to what people thought about different issues, but actually what their experiences were. And from those experiences, we took what should be the basis of the new European Bauhaus. We can go to the next slide. So apart from the values, which are very important, what is also important for us is how we work together. So we have these 3 principles, combining the global and the local, being participatory and being transdisciplinary. And we have in the communication, which came out in September 2021, we identified this thematic axis for transformation. We can go to the next slide. This is the communication, so we can go to the next slide, and we can skip also these timelines. So what's important is that we're looking at impacts at different levels, and also the way the initiative has been set up inside the Commission is really, as I was saying, on this transdisciplinary mode. So we're working with different colleagues among all the different departments of the European Commission. The same goes for the programs. So the funding is not from one single program, but from many programs, of course, the main one being Horizon Europe, but there are many, many others. And this was done on purpose so that we all work together in a new way. And of course, we're also trying to mobilize member states in how they do things, and also in the funding side. We can go to the next slide. So how do we actually work inside the new European Bauhaus? What is quite innovative, and then what I wanted to show to you here is what we call the NEB Lab. So this is for our community, which I will show you later, who's inside our community, to work together on projects that are of interest to people, to come together from different perspectives to work on those. And so so far we have 5 commission-led projects and 5 community-led projects. So from the Commission side, let's say, we wanted to work on what we call regulatory analysis. So to see if there are regulatory barriers to NEB projects. We're working on transformation of places of learning, which is a very interesting call of interest for everyone who works in education, works with students, works with citizens. This can be, you know, a school, a university, a library, that project that changes the environment in which the project happens. And this will close at the end of this year, but we've got a wonderful group of projects there. We're working on innovative funding, so to see how we can help maybe smaller projects, NEB projects, which have difficulty getting official EU money. So to see how we can work with crowdfunding and philanthropy to help our projects. We are working also on the labeling strategy. And this is in a 2-tier approach. First, we came out with the Compass. The official launch of the Compass, of the NEB Compass, will happen in January, but it is ready. I will show you a slide about the Compass in a minute. And then the second step is developing a NEB self-labeling tool for, this will be a much more in detail and by sector work to help people you know, make their projects NEB and be recognized as a NEB project. And the latest project, of course, is with the war in Ukraine. We started doing whatever we can, starting from very practical solutions that our high-level roundtable members were working on, and then expanding into a different avenue of looking how Ukraine can be rebuilt in a more NEB way. So I will come to that also later in the presentation. And then the three here NEBs go south: Nordic carbon neutral Bauhaus and the European Bauhaus of the Mountains are more community led projects. So the ideas came directly from the community. And if you're interested in any of these projects, there are more coming, there are more in the pipeline. I am happy to send you some more information afterwards. So we can go to the next slide. And maybe we can skip the details. I will show you very quickly about the compass. What is interesting about the compass, in addition to what is on the slide, is that there are three different dimensions. So we're measuring sustainability, beauty, and inclusiveness, and there are three levels in each of these dimensions. So if you have a project and you want to check whether it's a NEB project, or you want to start a project and you want it to be NEB, you can maybe be number 3 on sustainability, but first level on the beauty side, and second level of inclusiveness, and you still be a NEB project. So it allows you to see maybe also where you want to work more to make it more NEB, etc. We go to the next slide. For the compass, so apart from those, we also have our 3 ways of working, and also there we score 1, 2, 3, first, second, third level on participatory, on transdisciplinary, and on multi-level. So we can go to the next slide. And here I wanted to show you a little bit about our community, as I think it links also very well with the digiNEB community that we will definitely discuss later. So here we have 2 photos. One on the left is of our high-level roundtable members, and I'm just looking, but I don't see Michela on this photo. But we will see Michela live later. Our high-level roundtable members are sort of guiding lights, that help us direct the initiative and steer it in the right direction with very interesting and inspiring ideas. And on the right, we have a relatively new group in our community, the National Contact Points, which were created in spring of this year, and which are more contacts in the member states that are supposed to spread the word and organize the work more in the member states. We can go on. And so this is just for you, and we might not go through all of this because I know I'm running short on time. So let's advance, and we can skip the photo. And this is quite actually interesting. We are very happy to also welcome into our high-level roundtable three new members, which are all 3 of them are of African origin. And so we're very happy about this development, because this will allow us to pursue what we have thought for a while already to expand a little bit on the international scale and get some different points of view and different sensitivities into the European Bauhaus work. So we can go ahead. And Silvana, anytime I need to stop, give me a warning. So also one of the group that is quite new, one of the groups in the community are Friends, and this is for business and for local authorities. So we always show this slide to sort of, if there are any of you who are from those categories in the audience, it's an open call, and we're very happy to welcome more people into this part of the community. We can go ahead with the slides.
Yeah, I think you have 2 more minutes, Magda.
Okay, so just very quickly, this year we started with the Festival of the European Bauhaus. I'm sure some of you were there. A very successful event, very beautiful, and mixing high-level discussions with, street performance and direct participation of citizens. So we're going to continue with this every second year. We will have the NEB Festival. We can go ahead with the slides. There are some statistics, but we can skip them. Of course, we have our new European Bauhaus prizes. Now we've had 2 editions. We can continue with the slides. So this year, there's an interesting development because we will have a special strand for education projects, as it's a European Year of Skills also, and it's now open. So if you want to apply to be a prize, now is the time. We can go ahead with the slides. Of course, a very exciting development is the first call for lighthouse demonstrators of the Bauhaus. So we now have 6 projects which are in 14 locations, and these are amazing projects which will really show the transformation on the ground that the NEB brings. It's 5 million per project. There you have the list. Maybe you can read later when we share the slides. And of course, we have very regularly different calls from different parts of the Commission relating to the NEB. So the one that is open right now is from digiRegio, the Innovative Actions European Urban Initiative, it's called EUI, and here you have the different strands. It's mainly for cities who want to do work in any of those 4 strands, and it's open until January. So again, if anyone's interested, we also have already material for you to have a look at about different New European Bauhaus funding. We can go ahead. And okay, this is the Ukraine strand. We can just go maybe through the different slides. So what we're doing, this is the paper partition system. Oh, okay, that's very fast, but okay. So just wanted to say one of those slides that were there was also about a new European Commission building in Sevilla, this one. So just to tell you that the European Commission is also walking the talk and adopting NEB solutions to its own buildings. New buildings and existing buildings are also being adapted along New European Bauhaus principles. So maybe I'll stop here and just to say that that we have again many synergies with the growing community, which is more interested in the digital side of the NEB, which is here in the digiNEB. And some of our high-level roundtable members are also very involved in digiNEB, as Michela. So I will maybe now pass to Eddy to tell us a little bit more from that perspective. Thanks.
Wonderful, Magda. Thank you so much for going through that in wonderful timing. Over to you, Eddy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Silvana. Thank you, Magda. I think I'll condense my intervention in the 1 minute that we're already over time, so I see. But just simply, why are we at the juncture today? Within the discussion on the local digital transformation, we did a number of things with particularly the 86,000 cities that we would like to really do this for. And to make a long story short, we came to the conclusion that we really need to invest in local data spaces and in local digital twins. And we do that through a movement that is called the digiNEB.eu movement, where we bring all these 86,000 municipalities in the European Union together. Now, obviously, you do that investment in the technology for a purpose. It was already clear from the priorities of the Commission with the twin digital and green transition that those were very closely knit together. So we already had that togetherness and that we had that green dimension already. Visualizing a local digital twin. Another use case then that you have is the redesign of cities through virtual reality. So when the Bauhaus came along, we said like, hey, actually, we're already halfway on that path in our normal digital thinking. I think the one thing that we were missing that the Bauhaus will add to the thinking on the local digital transformation is the beauty element. To be very honest, the engineers weren't thinking too much of the beauty. They were thinking of nuts and bolts and all sorts of complications. But I think on the Bauhaus, we felt that what is maybe missing is a stronger dimension of the digital technology, the use of data, for example, artificial intelligence, and that can be beefed up. And as a consequence, in a way, those roads converged. And that is where we are now, where we had the possibility through the Digital Europe program to start a project digiNEB, where we are now, to say, how can we enlarge that ecosystem? How can we fit what we do in the cities in the new European Bauhaus ecosystem? But also, how can we enlarge the European Bauhaus system beyond architects and the environmentalists, but also to bring basically the technology engineers in there to enhance that movement. And I think that is what we are here today. Hence, I'm very pleased with the call that you had in the beginning, Silvana, really to volunteer to build that ecosystem. It's a complex one. It's a huge one because it's potentially, well, let's say, I would say 60% of society can potentially be involved in this. But it is an important one to bring that together. And that is what we try to do from DG Connect, of course, also with the help of JRC and many other colleagues. But I see that that is our role of together building that ecosystem through the digiNEB project. And I'm very happy, Silvana and the whole team. I mean, I won't mention all the names, but the work that you are putting into this, and it looks very promising. I will leave it at that to save a little bit of time also for the more interesting and more detailed contributions that the colleagues want to make. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Eddy. That's brilliant. I think, you know, you summed that up extremely well, that whole glue that we've been talking about, that we're trying to blend these together. The intro from Magda as well, to try and get these two worlds to meet. And we also said, didn't we, that with these different environments, they might also have these digital solutions that they can bring into the table. So we do have an army of people, companies with digital solutions, but having this ecosystem saying, hey, well, how can we get these talking together more? Brilliant. Moving on then, we're absolutely thrilled to have with us Jesús Angel García Sánchez, who is from the European Construction Technology platform, and he's on the executive board on the digital built environment. We said at the beginning, we've chosen this as a success story, if you like, on construction. This isn't just the verticals we're dealing with, but it's great that we have managed to have you, Jesús, with us so you can put your money where your mouth is and give us a practice case on the ground. So over to you, Jesús. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot for this opportunity to present the ECTP and the DB committee. We are going to put on the table some examples about the success of this initiative. In this first slide, I will try to summarize the main figures of the construction sector. I don't speak in a deep about this, but mainly the most important things to mention are related to the big importance of and relevance of the construction sector, not only in terms of the GDP rates, but also for the people involved in the world in this sector. But on the other hand, the main problem of the construction sector is the low penetration of the digital technologies within the cycle of the construction sector, not only in the construction operation itself, but also in the rehabilitation of the buildings and channels and big infrastructures and so on, but also in little operations like I am going to mention after this. So we have identified different large-scale implementations based on these digital tools, but for doing this, we have to do before to test little applications in little spaces in order to analyze the productivity of the solution in order to scale after the analysis of these results. The different applications we consider are interesting to use these technologies are the smart meter deployment in buildings for energy management of the not only for the whole infrastructure of the buildings itself, but also for sharing energy with the whole network. Please the slide, the previous slide, because I have to mention. Yeah, thank you. One of the most important things, more mature at this moment, is the digital twin for different scenarios, like not only the operation, but also the planification of the operation in order to prevent different potential activities or results depending on different factors, like meteorological factors, or in order to test different materials without any operation in the original building. In other words, the digitalization is very important for industrialization process, for prefabrication and supervision today and in a near future, in order to test different situation and in order to check and in order to simulate different situations. And this is the more mature technology at present, together with BIM, and eventually these digital solutions, the ECTP DB committee aims to open and share with people in order to use in a real scenarios. Yeah, please, next slide. Okay, for this reason, we create within the ECTP, the European Construction Technology Platform, the Digital Built Environment Committee that is focused in the use of the digital technologies in the construction sector, direct or in an indirect way, in both. So the best thing we have done is to gather the best practices from other sectors in order to analyze how to reuse these technologies in this sector, in the construction sector. Other important point we have done have been the identification of the current barriers and how to solve those barriers, which interventions we have to do for remove these barriers, and the definition of a strategic research and innovation agenda in order to support and to ensure the penetration of the technologies for the digital transformation of the construction sector.
Jesús, you have 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah. This is our map of technologies, the technologies benchmark depending on the phase of the construction sector: design, technology building blocks, construction process, the monitoring and management of the buildings, and the end of life and reuse the buildings for other purpose, and so on. And this is a very brief summary of all the activities in only one slide. And the next slide, please. In order to support this figure I shown in the previous slide, we have published recently in September of this year our position paper and how to apply these technologies in the construction sector. And we have identified different R&D challenge between 2022 and 2027. And this is our last publication of the position paper, that this is the source of many calls in the digital built environment program, built for people, inside the Define the Horizon Europe program. More information about this committee and all the information you will find in this URL.
Super, Jesús. Thank you so much for that. In fact, we're counting on the ECTP to have a success story from you as we introduced at the beginning. So we'll be coming back to you, and details, as you can see, are there. Next up, we have Roberto Cavallo. Thank you once again, Jesús. He's a council member for the EAAE, European Association for Architectural Education, and a partner of one of the partners of this initiative. Over to you, Roberto, for more opportunities.
Thank you very much, Silvana. Well, to me, it's an honor this afternoon to announce the opening of our campaign called the Early Adopters Campaign. Within this campaign, that is, of course, connected with the digiNEB project, we are looking for examples, representative examples of digital solutions that are operating within the European Bauhaus networks that are really tackling with all the three pillars of the European Bauhaus. So we are looking for people, we are looking for experiences, we are looking for best practices that are making use of digital solutions in order to achieve results in compliance with the European Bauhaus. You can see on the digiNEB.eu website, there is a dedicated page where you can enroll actually for this campaign, where you can give few information about yourself, who you are, and also about the type of digital solutions that you are adopting. And our intention is to, in every time that we organize a webinar, to shed light to some of those initiatives. So we really would like to show where are those practices, what are they doing, and how do they set in digital solutions in order to propel their project. Today is my honor to introduce the first one in this, we hope, very successful role of representative experiences. And I'm delighted to introduce Jan Aman, senior researcher at ICF in Sweden. And Jan will show you the Duvet project, with the first representative of these early adopters, let's say, campaign of the digiNEB. Jan, the word to you.
Excellent, Roberto. Thank you.
You are on the mute, Jan.
Thank you, Roberto. Yes, and what our first success story coming in from Jan from ICF, also a partner of digiNEB. Over to you, Jan. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Roberto. Thank you, everyone. I'm so honored to be here today and talking about Duvet. And in fact, Duvet started, the project started in 2018. So we're not only an early adopter, we're a pre-adopter. And I can see, and I'm very, very happy to see that very many of the ideas that we started with are so well described through the European Bauhaus and now through the digiNEB. And here you can see an image from Duvet. It's a small little village up north in a district famous for its skiing and the mountains. And it's really a tiny village. When we started with 700 people, now it's 1,000 people. I was quite hesitant, but I realized that having worked with larger cities and so on, that Duvet could actually tell me a lot of the problems and give answers to problems that I've been looking on in cities in Stockholm, but also elsewhere. And you can take the next image. So it all started really, as I think the new European Bauhaus would sort of look on the old model, the industrial model, the modern model, that a model based on pipelines or silos that was fantastic once upon a time, but based on the industrial factory model of top-down, centralized, linear, and urban structures. Next, please. And with Michela Magas, that I've been having the pleasure of discussing a lot with, she introduced this idea of the ecosystemic society, and that's really what we've been up to, which means that a couple of things come in that wasn't in the industrial model. And one is, of course, the global local challenges. The global challenges we know of, it's about climate, it's about war, it's about a lot of these things that one didn't think of as much in the industrial era. And a very important one now is the local challenge, which is democracy. I think that is one of the biggest challenges in the world today. So we've been working a lot on that, but then also connecting all these things. The food system is fantastic to work with because it's a sort of it's good to prototype to that because it's very comprehensible. Housing system is something that we just heard. We need to innovate construction, production of housing to find affordable housing for the many. We need to rethink mobility. We need to rethink how our streets and public spaces are used and use them in a better way. And then we found out that this is also extremely interesting to use for the knowledge production. Next, please. So if you apply this, what we simply did on the village, it's much easier to do that than to do it through a city, because the village already has that. It's sort of in the DNA of the village is that you share. So this idea of a circular economy or whatever you call it is there already. And we could then quite easy sort of start to find out how we could use a food system, how we could use the democracy system, how we could use all these things within the little format of the village. Next, please. So we started with not really knowing, but we just sort of skipped, because this started through the municipal real estate company, which means in Sweden, that's a big thing, because it's a company that has the sort of aim to find especially housing for the many. So it was a tool for the old Swedish model. Today it's a system that's kind of cracked in a way. So we wanted to reinvent it. But so we started just by asking the people living in the village to come and work with us. And this is important to see how, because everything is really about how can we transform our society to match a digital society and not the old industrial society. So we had them in workshops like this, sitting, and we had 20% coming to each workshop or village meeting, as we call them, and they came. They really came, and I mean, in total, we probably had 40% of the village at least coming to these meetings. So they were productive, and they felt a bit confused to start with, because we asked them not to have an opinion on something already decided, but to actually be part of the decision-making or the vision-making of their own environment. And it was fun and frustrating and a very interesting process. Next, please. And we sat together with the villagers, because we wanted to find, because quite close to this little village, there's the village of Åre, which is one of the biggest ski destinations in the Nordic part of Europe, where prices are very high, whereas this was like the leftover little sister, where people still live and where prices were much lower. So we want to avoid the gentrification process. We wanted to be affordable. We wanted to have like a lot of rental apartments. And we saw that from the very beginning, that this was a possible way to generate results that could be very, very easy to adopt in cities. I mean, like Stockholm, for instance, but also be scale to other places and other countries. We saw immediately that this also transformed the idea of the old sort of relationship between the urban and the rural. Because suddenly the rural became an asset. We could try things which you cannot do in a city. We could do it because the prices were lower. Bureaucracy was not as set. Decision-making was easy. And we could add things. For instance, just this idea of knowledge production that was asked by the architecture school of Umeå, for instance, in the north of Sweden to start with, that they wanted to do a studio because they saw that they could work with prototyping, with working actually with the local community. And it was extremely successful. And that's now, so we have now other universities coming as well. So
yeah, I'm going to give you 2 minutes on the clock. Thank you.
Next one, please. And it was easy to try that on the food systems as well, because that's something where we are now also developing digital tools to get that functioning. Next. and that we can skip this actually. And then we formed a company, which is very important, that we could sort of get the public side, the investment side, and the villagers together. Next. And we use this simple tool, the physical tool of the aerial photograph, to work on that. Next. And we had all the people from the village working on that aerial photograph, which was a very, very fantastic tool to use. So that's the starting point of the digital tool, which we come to here, because we actually just transformed the aerial photograph on the floor to the telephone, which connects the physical work or the meetings, the physical meetings, with something that will be an ongoing village meeting that is going to keep on going on all the time. And that's a way to sort of communicate the results from the villagers as well with the politicians and also other investors and so on. And that means that you get sort of an overview of what the villagers want to do and how they do it, and so on. And you can take this last slide. And we can thus address different sectors of what they work with, like housing, transportation, energy, food, and so on. And we can point out special areas where they wanted, where the villagers have ideas of doing stuff. For instance, they started a potato field in the children's ski slope in the summertime, and we're now locating different places like this in the village, which means that we have something that's very sort of useful for each and every one. We can also collect data to this. We can address different groups of society, the elderly, the school children, and so on, which means that we have a very good possibility of handling this and getting people that are not used to using these kinds of tools, because it's very much connected to a physical idea of workshops, and then get the workshops more vital and energized through the digital. So it's very much based on this interplay between the two. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you very much, and also for coming in and talking for the CEO at Duvet Framed AB, who is Helen Ollison, who unfortunately was not able to join us as she's poorly. So we're moving into our panel discussion now, into the final stages of our webinar, which is great. We have some wonderful experts with us. We have Michela Magas, a partner, digiNEB, Chair of Industry Commons Foundation, and a member of the NEB High-level Roundtable, and Ruth Schagemann, who's a member of the Our External Advisory Group of the project, which is great as well, and the President of the Architects Council of Europe. And we also have Jan Aman, Senior Researcher of ICF, who's also joining the panel discussion too. So if we have a look, so welcome and thank you for joining us. The EU aims to be climate neutral by 2050, making its economy with net zero gas emissions. The transition to a climate neutral society is not easy, and change management practices need to be put into place to bring paradigm shifts to our living habits. How can the NEB principles, and in particular the use of digital solutions for NEB, facilitate this mindset and accelerate transition to climate neutral cities? So I'd like to pose that question first to you, Michela, then Ruth and Jan to add your comments. Over to you, and thank you.
Thank you, Silvana. Well, I believe that the European Bauhaus community is extremely well placed to facilitate this transition. NEB communities operate by being immersed in cultural trends. You know that European Bauhaus is all about culture, and therefore they can facilitate cultural shifts, and those come with behavioral changes. So that also means that by stimulating cultural shifts towards more sustainable practices, NEB communities can also facilitate behavioral transitions. Now, in terms of connecting this to the digital transition, a great many members of the NEB communities are also early adopters of frontier technologies. And what they tend to do is they test their effects on communities and ecosystems in hands-on prototyping and applications on the ground. Now, this is incredibly important because it effectively immerses technical ingenuity in culture. And this is a hook for technology providers. We know that technology can't operate without being immersed in culture, and if culture doesn't adopt it, it fails. So by immersing technology into culture hands-on, the NEB communities can observe the effects that novel technology affordances can have on communities and their impacts on ecosystems. And in that sense, the NEB communities can safeguard the social and ethical dimensions of technology. But also these cultural and behavioral shifts are also leading to emerging markets, and by engaging with frontier technologies, the NEB communities can bring those technologies together with the emerging markets so that solutions work both for society and for the technology providers. So for me, this is a win-win situation.
Thank you so much, Michela. And Ruth, now coming in clearly from an architect's background, would you like to add your insights on this? Thank you. Ruth, I think you're mute. We still can't hear you. Whilst Ruth manages the audio, shall we move to Jan? You want to comment on this briefly?
Yes, of course I can. I mean, I think Michela said most of it, and I hope that combined with what I said before on Duvid is pretty clear that this is a fantastic possibility of actually including the NEB principles and make them into a tool to actually generate change. I think that this possibility is something we have to use, and I mean what we try to do is this place where we're kind of a test bed or a lab to actually try this out for real and together with the people living there. But with the digital solutions, that's needed to have it scalable. And we need to think of that not as a technology, but as something that we can use to be more directly used into sort of in dialogue with the people doing it.
Yeah, and certainly the example you gave from Duvid before certainly gave that scale dimension. Yeah. Ruth, are you back?
Now,
lovely. Super, no worries.
Sorry.
Over to you, Ruth.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me here in this roundtable discussion. And let's say, as the Architects Council of Europe and with the professional of architects, let's say in the background, in the field of architecture, the new European Bauhaus is really like a blueprint of enormous important values to transform our built environment into a high quality built environment. And in this field, the discipline as architecture as a discipline is really also at the crossroads of arts, of technology, of economy, and also social issues. So the digital approach really holds much promise in the hands, and yes, as a tool for a transformation. And let's say from the perspective of the architects, we could say it's about also exploring new aesthetic frontiers. It has been also mentioned today. It's really to push forward simulations and combinations of scenarios which beforehand were not possible. And it's also to work on architectural forms that were previously impossible to achieve. And it's not only about architecture, it's really about the built environment. It's about city fabrics. So it's about developing tools to improve the analysis, for example, of design process. And it's not for one singular person, the one who owns a house or a certain neighborhood. It's much more. It's really about a design process to build for many. And we saw it in this fantastic example from Sweden just recently. And now It's also about the independent citizen. That's also something that has been mentioned already. And the inhabitants have an impact on their built environment. And this together with digitalization can really, let's say, enhance the situation. It's about collective knowledge where we can really put together data, we can put knowledge together and everyone can share if it is an open source. So also open sources are going to be an interesting point of view for the future. So in my opinion, it really has a lot of opportunities that we have to dive into, enhance and harvest them as well to improve our built environment for the future.
Thank you so much, Ruth. If we can go on to the next slide, we have another question before we wrap up our webinar, but I do want to also kindly suggest that if any of the speakers who are still with us can look at the questions and answers, because we do have some traffic going on there, which is nice, and we're answering as best we can. If any of you would like to intervene and also add one of your responses to any of the questions coming in, then we would highly appreciate that, and that would be wonderful. Okay, so the last question then this afternoon is more in general. The new European Bauhaus aims to make the EU Green Deal a cultural experience focused on people, leveraging on the values of aesthetics, inclusion and sustainability. And we heard that this previously also from Magda and our other speakers too. In this context, do you have any examples or cases showing how digitalization can contribute to making local living spaces more inclusive, sustainable and beautiful? And perhaps I'll start that this time with yourself, Ruth, to give a few comments on that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, we have examples, and at the moment we are collecting them. We previously had the conference on artificial intelligence, so it was focusing on artificial intelligence there. And let's say the Architects Council of Europe, we have just started going more into depth into this topic. And beginning with next year, we will launch a study to collect these different approaches. And in architecture, maybe in general, the digitalization has already been an important part of a lot of offices, but more in the sense of paramedics. So like to analyze and to develop new shapes. And now we are really stepping into an absolute new territory with more possibilities, more possibilities of combination, collecting data, putting data together. So yes, this is a new field and we will try to investigate. And I hope next webinar, maybe mid of next year or maybe also end of next year, we can show you more examples then really in practice and enlighten the situation a bit.
Thank you, Ruth. And it's great that you are part of the external advisory group that's led by Michela, so we can have this continuous flow of dialogue already happening this December that we can capitalize on and take it forward. So that's super. Michela, over to you.
Thank you. And I can build on what Ruth has just said, in a sense that one of the biggest priority areas, I think, for Europe and for the sustainability strategies is actually the ability to follow the life cycle of materials and products. These are the systems that we desperately need in order to be able to make the right decisions. And if you were following about 2 weeks ago, this hugely successful conference that was led by President von der Leyen called Bauhaus Goes to the Woods, with all of the members of all of the presidents of Nordic countries. And we highlighted, for example, the importance of wood, sustainable management of wood as one of the strategies towards more sustainable construction. So this is not only about sustainable economy, it's also actually something that is affecting us in terms of sustainable business, because in terms of developing resilience in respect of material shortages, for example, or enabling well-informed decision-making processes for designers and for architects. As Ruth has mentioned, there are several now digital projects going ahead with that. They actually contribute to good business, to sustainable business. So from that point of view, we need data standardization across the board for primary industry, for example, in the sense of the life cycle of wood, which actually there's one project one good example is being managed by one of the partners on digiNEB, InnovaWood. It's a Bassajaun project. It's following the full life cycle of wood. In that sense, they need to be able to follow the full life cycle between the primary industry, wood mills, city planners, architects, construction industry, the strategies for reuse, repurpose, etc. Now, this is paramount in order to be able to manage things sustainably. And also in that context, there's a great deal of work being done on material passports. So in that sense, we have a great deal that's already happening, that's in place, but we need to speed up these solutions, because that is how we're going to manage, not only for the construction industry, other industries are involved, and for example, the textiles industry, which is also very high on the agenda in terms of sustainability. Now, I also want to touch upon the other qualities of and other priorities for the European Bauhaus, which are inclusion and aesthetics, because these tend to get left out from these examples, and we have plenty of examples that are hugely important. One is, for example, on the inclusivity. We have very many examples, and too many to list here because obviously we don't have the time, to show how digital technologies and how innovation in digital technologies can contribute to people with severely limited ability to actually end up running their own businesses and meaningfully contributing to society. Now, as I say, too many to list here. If anybody is interested, please contact me on that front. We have tangible examples and real results from this. But also we do approach this idea of inclusivity as radical inclusion, as where we converge in terms of being driven by missions and with a sense of purpose. So it doesn't matter who it is, we don't tick boxes. We actually assemble everybody in the place of common understanding, and we work towards results. And this really helps our inclusivity strategy. And this brings me to just the final quality of European Bauhaus, which is about aesthetics. Interestingly enough, in our high-level roundtable discussions, we agreed that beauty emanates out of a sense of community, which actually does connect to the Duvert example. It connects to very many things that have been mentioned here, but it also leads to something else, which is that with the novel technological affordances that we have been testing with communities on the ground, we have actually discovered completely new levels of virtuosity from people. And virtuosity is something that's incredibly beautiful. It's the ultimate expression of what a human can do. And by joining novel affordances of technologies with people's talents, we can meaningfully contribute to societal transformation. So I think we should keep the idea of beauty and aesthetics within this context.
Thank you so much. Wonderful inputs from our panelists. Jesús, you have a hand up. Do you have a quick point you'd like to make?
Yeah, sure. Considering that the construction sector is the sector with the highest consumption of both energy and raw materials, it's the right candidate to check and to test all the digital technologies in order to improve the sustainability. So in fact, as I mentioned in my previous presentation, I mentioned that there are two very important technologies in the construction sector. That the first one is BIM, and the other one is the digital twin. A combination of both, a mix of both, is a new paradigm. Current paradigm, that is BIM LCSA, that is BIM-based platforms and tools for integrated life cycle sustainability assessment. So currently we are in the for the construction sector, but developed by engineer and technology companies like Indra. We are developing the different simulators in order to check the different situations in order to consider it depending on the life cycle and its complexity and so on, and making use of artificial intelligence forms and tools, we obtained two dimensions: the design, the construction and maintenance of the buildings and infrastructures, and the other one is the living environment as host. So with the digital representation of the real building and the interaction between them, we will be able to increase this and use this paradigm for covering the whole life cycle in terms of sustainability.
Thank you very much, Jesús. Magda, hand up, over to you. Thank you.
Yes, just very quickly, because there are many examples in the life of the NEB of a reply to your questions about how this digitalization can make things inclusive, sustainable, and beautiful. And I absolutely agree with what Michela was saying, that it is this inclusion that actually creates beauty and how they interact together. Just two examples which are quite nice from our prizes. We had one in Lithuania where people created in one locality a digital map to protect cultural heritage and to protect the area against gentrification. Then, for example, in Berlin, we had another prize where that showed a project that showed how the city interacts with its river, and the digital aspect was actually reading the river every day, and citizens could interact with that to see what was going on with the river. So it's even, we have many examples going just beyond the human, also involving really other species and rivers and other parts of the living environment. So if anyone again is interested, I'd be happy to send some more examples, but I just wanted to add those. Thanks.
Brilliant. We've come up to the hour, and many of you will probably have a 4 o'clock. So what I'd like to ask very quickly is, after you've heard this great presentations from our experts, if you think you might have a digital solution, could you either put a +1 in the chat, or can you look at the poll that you can see, and you can click on more than one, okay? You might have a success story or a digital solution you want to join as an early adopter or be part of one of our technical working groups. And I'm also responding to Marlon that you've already received a reply from Maria that there is, and there will be in our observatory, a chance that there will be open discussions. So this is coming to you very soon, so that we will be opening this up. And it would be wonderful if you could put in your answers in the poll. And with that, I'd like to thank you for keeping to time. I would like to thank our wonderful speakers. So if we can give a round of applause to everybody this Monday afternoon. It's been extremely informative. All presentations will be up on the webinar page, and we do have the recording of today's webinar for those people who didn't manage to come on. Stay tuned. We will have more in the pipeline. If you want to know more, please do contact us. And thank you so much once again for your cooperation, support, and wonderful interventions. Thanks. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye.